It had been almost 20 years when I returned to visit San Francisco. Besides seeking out good food and art, I sought out places captured in memory. One being the Japanese tea garden. Mentioning that I hadn't been in the garden since I was a child, the person collecting entry fees said, "Don't be surprised if the garden seems much smaller now that you are grown up." We both laughed. The tea garden was indeed smaller than I remembered. Time and maturity are like that. Many of the monsters that haunted me as a kid are much smaller than I perceived. Many, not all. Sifting through family photos in the year after my dad died, I found one of my sister and I. We were 4 and 5 years old, both of us in plaid, standing together on the walkway next to the garage. As I looked at the photo, I realized we were standing on what I now call the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet was the walkway from the driveway to the front door. It was probably only 10 or 15 feet in length, but to a barefoot 5-year-old on damp Bay Area mornings, it felt like 100 miles. When I get to the part that makes the pathway from the house to the driveway a gauntlet, you will ask the obvious question. To which I will answer, there was a morning routine I had to adhere to. The adults made the rules and no one thought to cover my feet. In Northern California, terrestrial gastropods tend to thrive in a cool, moist environment. And gastropods of varying sizes, like cars and buses and trucks on the Bayshore Freeway, made their commute across and along the pathway. The same pathway I had to negotiate daily in order to retrieve the newspaper laying in wait on the driveway or front lawn. Every morning I would wake up and run to the table for breakfast, hoping that I wouldn't have to go out and get the paper. This may be one of the root causes of my lifelong anxiety. And like clockwork, my dad would send me out the front door and down the Gauntlet. There would be no tears allowed. I could simply step over the snails and slugs and grab the paper and return. Only it was never that easy. There were so many of them. And I had to go out and then come back, which guaranteed my failure. My feet would eventually crack a shell I didn't see, the cold, wet entrails squishing between my toes. Horror freezing me in my quest to just get back inside unscathed, both myself and the gastropods, with the fucking newspaper. My dad would be both impatient and disappointed that I couldn't fulfill my task without drama or having to go wash slimy guts off my feet. Many years later, I would have a fish tank that would inhabit a lovely lionhead goldfish, a dojo loach, and one apple snail that hitched a ride on some anacharis planted in the tank. I didn't think much about the snail, figuring that between it and the dojo loach, there wouldn't be an algae problem. Remember what I said about the size of monsters? In a matter of months, that snail grew to be the size of my lion head, which was roughly the size of a tennis ball. One Sunday morning, after a very long and psychedelic Saturday night, I had plans to have a hangover brunch with my pal David. I had gone over to the fish tank to feed the goldfish and noticed the snail was swimming in the middle of the tank. Or so I thought. Upon closer examination, and to my horror, the snail was on top of the goldfish, consuming what was left of its fins. Right about then, David walked in the door asking me what I was doing. I pointed to the tank. We both stared, unable to avert our gaze. David broke the silence. "Holy shit, that's fucked up. What are you gonna do?" "Flush the fish and put my shoes on."